how do you shade these objects? So we're going to do a cube and a sphere. And the cube could be a building and the sphere could be a tree, right? So we're going to just simplify it. Where the heck am I? And we're going to, let's make the sphere green since it might be a tree. And I'm going to make the building red because it might be brick. Okay. Now, remember, I have my colors arranged like a rainbow. Yellow, orange, 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 red, red, violet, into purples, blues, and greens. So I said that if something is, I don't want to make you dizzy, if something's orange, you'll notice that on one side of the color wheel, it goes yellow, orange, and red, orange, right? So let's take this sphere, this cube, and let's pretend like the light is coming from this direction. So that means this whole top will be a little lighter. So since this will be in the, I said red. Since this will be in the red range, as this brick, I'm going to make the top red orange because if light hits a red object, it will roll towards the light, and then the red object will roll towards the dark. So in the red range, I have red orange to red violet. So let's make the top, let's not use the red at first. Red's going to be the last thing we use. I want you to make this top orangey. You can use your orange, you can use your tomato, but just something with a degree of orange in it. Remember, when I say orange, I mean a shade of orange, and shade does not mean light and dark. Shade actually means a degree of color. So it has a degree of orange in it, whether it's orangey brown, whether it's an orangey bright. So I'm going to make that part orange. Now, this part here is the furthest away. So this part is in between. Like, I know this is dark because it's away from the light. That's close to the light. So let's make this my reddish, okay? So I'm going to make this a little redder. Leave a little gap between the two edges. Like, don't bring it all the way to the edge because we need to make the edge pop. And so the edge will get a highlight. So this will be my red color. What you're seeing me work with now are Conte pencils, which are pastel pencils. They make my drawing a lot cleaner. And if you're working with pastels, I would be real tempted in a final drawing to put a piece of paper here and, use a piece of paper to put my pastels around. Like if this was a stick, I would do this because so much faster and cleaner. You just use a scratch sheet as a tool. Now over here, I'd like for you to put a red violet. And it could be a kind of red violet. I'm going to push it and make it really violet here. Okay, so I'm going to push it so it's like maybe a little too violet so that you can see how far you can push it and it'll still work. What I have now is ostensibly a red cube, but I know that on one side of the color wheel, the light, as it bounces around the cube, will go towards the light and will go red, orange, and red, violet. Now, I'm going to take my red. I can't even see what I'm doing here. Just my red. Here's my red. Now I have ascertained three very distinct planes. If it's light on this side, it will be just slightly darker on this side. So now I'm going to actually take my red and work it into the lights and darks. And I actually don't need much red for your eye to believe that the top of this is a red object. So I'm going to just work a little bit of my red pastel in. Now, the reason I'm doing it this way is in pastels and color pencils, whatever color is on top is the color you think it is. So I could have a really weird color underneath, And when I put the red on top, you'll believe that it's a red cube. And then I'm going to do the same thing to the violet, except for here, it will be darker at the bottom. So I'm going to put maybe more red at the top and emphasize the red at the top. And notice I'm not quite coming to the edges because we're going to clean up the edges with a little pop of light. So I'm coming in here. It's funny, after drawing like this for a while, you'll look around and you'll see this in trees, any object that you see here. Now, once I have this, I can start building it up a little bit more. But the other thing I can do is that if you think about it, I have a red, a yellow, and a blue, the blue that's in the violet. So red, red, orange, red, red, violet. I might want to blend this a little bit by saying, okay, this red is lighter here because I'm thinking that the cube is lighter at the top. So you can get those colors to kind of wrap around a little bit. And it depends on the quality of the light. Now here, where it's still looking purple, I know that the main local color is red. So I'm doing red, orange, and red, violet to some degree. But it's still looking like a weird purple glow there. I also know that if red is bouncing back to my eyes, green is absorbed. So I need to get this purple not to look so purple. I need it to look like a shadow of red. So I'm going to come in with the color that's furthest away from red on the color wheel. And I really need to accentuate the shadows. You know how when you draw, if you pop in a shadow, it makes it look better. So I'm going to come in here to the darkest point, and I'm going to put the darkest green I've got. And it'll glow at first. But, you know, it's nice to have your drawing glow, right? And when I come in here, it looks so weird on the camera. And now I come in here. And this is actually what the light's doing. It's like a full spectrum. Do you see how that got on your screen? Did that get grayer? Now I can, you know, come back in here and I used a different red. Here we go. I'm just kind of blending the colors in. But here I have three really distinct planes going on here. In my own artwork, I might be more subtle with this, but I think I am purposely trying to be like super strong in my coloration here so that you can see like really distinct differences. So you can make it more subtle. Although people like Picasso said, why should I make it subtle? It's kind of cool to see what I'm doing. You can even push these colors. If I'm going from red to red orange, red to red violet, I mean, I can push these colors so that the red orange could have a little yellow in it. What I'd like for you to do here, though, is we have this reddish cube. I would like for you to choose some color that you think of as light. It could be white. It could be bright yellow. I'm going to make this white light. I hardly ever do it, but it's like it's in an office. And where these edges are, not the outside edges, the inner edges, I'd like for you to super highlight them. Whenever something bends, it gets a highlight. Now, once I do that, I can diffuse that a little bit. I can go over it with a yellowish light, which I would prefer. Now, since I have red, orange, red, red, violet, the red orange has some yellow in it. Red violet has some blue in it. I now have all the colors that I need for my picture. However, let's do a shadow, and I don't care what color you do it in. I'm going to use this blue. Mariana, you're sorry. I'm going to use this brown. I couldn't stand that blue against that blue. Mariana, you know, it's very common to make your shadow do this, but it's as though this shadow is attached to that. And really the shadow is not attached to that, it's attached to the table. So if you can get those shadow colors to go in a different direction, it's amazing the difference that can make. And it's very easy to say, I want this to be shadowed this way, when really it would be shadowed that way. Does that make sense, Mariana? So I'm going to treat that brown that I just put down as an orangey brown. And since it's an orangey brown, I'm going to mix my blue into it. Now, you know, I realize that the color theory I'm giving you is graduate school level. I mean, this is a very high level. Okay, Ananya, but this is a very high level of understanding of color. So if it feels a little bit going by too fast, oh my God, we're at 3:19. I'm sorry. Jesus, can I do something real quick for Mariana? Look, Mariana, if I take this green and I do this way, the lights come in here. Delaney, if you need to leave, I understand. With the tech problems I had, I didn't realize that we were going late. So if the lights come in here, Mariana, this whole bottom would be dark, wouldn't it? And so if I'm going to go to green, I can go to, here's my green. There's my yellow green. And I think you were thinking like this a little bit, Mariana, right? Now this can be a texture, as in leaves, right? Okay. And then we have this texture. And then a little cool trick, my dear, is that the opposite of green is red. So I'm going to come in here with a very dark red. And at first I can see that red, but if I put the green on top, it will look like darker green. Now, what's happening in your trees, my dear, is that you might have really your round tree has different branches on it, right? And so if I were to think of mostly it's light at the top. So each of these blob shapes might have a little light at the top-ish. And this one would have a little less light, and this would have a little more light, a little less light. So these would have maybe the most light. And then as I move down here, I can make it go from yellow-green to a little green. Now, this is a formula, Mariana. So, you know, learn the formula and then play around with it. I don't know as I would necessarily make all trees, you know, this way, but it's a good way to think about it and analyze those shapes. Notice the shapes that I'm making are kind of like the shapes you saw me outline. They're kind of like camouflage shapes that you end up seeing. And then when I come in here with the dark, and then there's always a place where like two darks meet that makes it difficult. Two ways to deal with that is to put a little edge of light where the two darks meet, or go into the darkest dark, I mean the darkest green with a deeper red. You don't need much because it's almost like putting black into white when you do that. And then when you blend that in, put some green on top. So then when you go to put another tree behind it, instead of necessarily doing